All right, everybody. Here we are, week 6 of what, like 14? Almost halfway through the semester. It's kind of crazy. Any questions? Anything you guys are working on? I looked, he hasn't put a midterm review out yet, has he? Said anything about that? No? Yeah, so I think what will end up happening is this recitation we'll end up with our midterm review on Thursday, next Thursday. But everybody else will probably have it earlier in the week, because I'm guessing on Friday he'll probably release the midterm, some kind of midterm review. Although the stuff we're covering is probably half that exam, so stuff we're covering today, depending on how far we get. But no questions on the project. Everybody's almost done with it.
Let's go with that.
At least started it.
Yeah, started.
Everybody's at least started it? Yeah? Almost everybody. Okay. So, follow sets, you guys are been done with those for a little bit now, but I've, kind of like last time with first sets, I've redone the rules kind of with a little bit of color and a few little different letters, just because I think it helps me with clarity. And so I was hopeful that it would help you guys. A little different from the first sets I changed when I worked on it today was I used F because it's looking in the first set, and that's just kind of to remind me that it's looking for a value from the first set. Although I guess that's the same letter as follow. Doesn't work as well as I thought now that I'm thinking about it. Seemed really good at the time when I created the slide, so I may have to pick a different letter.
Just put FI or something.
Yeah, I was really trying to keep it one letter, so I'm thinking T is probably where I'll end up instead. For first. Something else. All right. So, with these rules, you have. Now I remember. Lights. Is that better? Better? All right. So the first thing we do when we start, if we find the starting symbol and we add the $S or the end of file to it, to the follow set for the follow of S. All right. Now these next two rules, rules 2 and 3, are focused on what is following, what's coming after in when you go to the end of the line. So with in here, when it's at the end, so we ask, is in at the end of the line? It is. Well, then we want to add the follow of L to in, because whatever could possibly follow L could also follow in. And then for rule 3, it's the same thing, just with epsilon, just with epsilons in the middle. So if you're not at the end, but somewhere where you're followed by nothing but epsilons, then we also want to add the follow of L to the follow of N. All right. And then the last two rules are kind of grouped or similar together. They both operate, they're both adding based on first sets. So they're actually adding first sets. So the first one is you take the non-terminal directly to the right of whatever you're worried about, directly to the right of n here, and add its first set minus epsilon to the follow set of n. And then for the second rule, or for the fifth rule, you're looking where you've got interceding epsilons, so you effectively have the same thing that it's next to because there's epsilons in between. And so the f's here could if they all go to epsilon in between, then we add the first of I plus 1, minus epsilon to the follow of n. So why do we have, it's just a curious thing, but why do we have rules 4 and 5? Why do we have both of them, I guess is the question. the same thing. But it's kind of like in first sets too, right?
Is the before it's adding it to the F0 one, so it's that first set, but with 5 it adds to the next one.
Right.
Next F0.
So 5, the way it's constructed, is starting 1 to the right because it's only looking at the I plus 1, the first set. It's only adding the first set of the I plus 1. See my first typo. All right, so with follow sets, how many times, given this context-free grammar, how many times do we process the rules for follow A in a given round? Right, which is how many times on the right side? It's on there 3 times, so yeah. So the 3 different appearances of it, we use those when we're processing the follow A, and that's one of the big differences between processing follow sets and processing first sets, is first sets are worried about the non-terminals. So the process for a given non-terminal only happens really once, whereas here we're looking at every occurrence on the right-hand side of the non-terminal that we're worried about. It's just a little different processing-wise. It's a little bit different way to think about it when you're going through the rules. Okay, so this was our follow example that we had last week. I'm sorry, our first example that we had last week where we created these first sets. And what we're going to do is do the same thing for the follow sets because it's a little bit more straightforward. So I've moved all of the rules, or all of the firsts up there with the full grammar too. So what do we start with when we're doing follow sets? What do we do? Yeah, what do we do before that?
At the end, final follow.
Yeah, what do we do before that? Empty sets. So we do the empty sets, and then we do the follow, add in the file to the follow. So that was right. I was just being nitpicky. And then what? What's next? There are some rules to help. Since we're done with rule 1, right? We don't need to worry about it again, so that's why it's not up there in the list of rules. But what were you going to say?
Add the first b minus epsilon into formula A.
Yeah. So rule 2. Does rule 2 apply? Is it the rightmost?
No.
Yeah. So A is not on the end. And rule 3, which is what I think you're saying. Rule 3, does it apply? Is there a non-terminal directly to the right of A? Yes. So we would take that non-terminal on this, I guess, I'm going to kind of cheat here. I'm referring back up to the rule to kind of give you context for everything. And that's not. No, that's right. All right. It's supposed to be green, though. So we would add. No, it's not right. Yeah, okay. So that's rule 4. See, we're already catching bugs. So the rule 3 is going to be directly to the right, and so I have the wrong one there. Hopefully not for the rest of the rule 3 applications. And with rule 3, we're going to apply we're going to apply the follow of. Now I'm all messed up. We're going to apply the follow of F, the F0, which would be the follow of B. And the follow of B right now is the empty set. Right?
Right.
got all messed up.
Maybe the first
No, it is into at first be
Yeah, I'm skipping all around, aren't I? My bad. Alright, I got. So I'll be honest, when I went through this class, these were definitely the rules I had the most trouble with. They're in my brain, I worked through these slides, I worked through them again this morning, and I don't know. I ended up actually, for follow sets, I had to do it in a different way, just to process them. I couldn't process them this way, but I'm trying really hard, we'll get there. Question?
no, it just for root because
Yeah.
learn in all they are B and C as well.
Right, exactly.
So
So it is, so I got all twisted up. So yeah, Rule 3 does apply. Rule 3 applies because we have B and C both have, in their first sets, they both have epsilon in there. So, yay me, I did it right this morning. I just got twisted up while I was up here. So we're looking at Rule 3. Rule 3 wants to know, do we go all the way to the end of the line with epsilons? And if so, then we add the follow of the production rule that we're on. So in this case, that's follow of S. Thank you. Got me going again. All right. So the follow of S is just, in the file symbol. And so we add that. All right. Now what about Rule 4? Rule 4 is the one where it's directly next. We're going to add whatever's directly next. So is there a symbol directly next to A in this case?
Being the symbol, a non-terminal.
A non-terminal.
Yeah.
B and T.
Yeah. It could be a terminal or a non-terminal, right?
Okay, then you see the
Directly next to it. It could be either. It would still fall into its follow. It would still be something that's following it.
edge.
Right. So we have A, B, and the F0. So in the first one next to A, and we would add the first of B for that minus epsilon, which is VE minus epsilon, which gives us V. Perfect. Does Rule 5 apply here? Do we have an epsilon in between another non-terminal?
Yep.
Yep. And so, in this case, it follows this format, and it's looking at the I plus 1, so we add the first of C minus epsilon, which is T minus epsilon, or T. All right. Now we're looking for all the instances of B, for the follow of B. So starting with Rule 2 is B on the end. It's not. So what about Rule 3? Does Rule 3 apply? To remind myself and everybody else, this is the one that's looking at epsilons going all the way to the end. Do epsilons, is there an epsilon in C, basically?
Yes.
Yes. So we would add the follow of S to the follow of B, which is the in the file marker. What about Rule 4? Is there a non-terminal directly next to B?
Yes.
Yes. B like first.
Yep. So we add the first of C, which is T and E. Sorry. No, that's wrong. T and E.
Yeah.
I can't live with that. I thought about doing it the same way Adam does for this one, because it is easier just to write it, but no. It's probably on every slide too. That's what's. I haven't come up with a great way to create these yet. All right. That's a real mistake. Oh well. It's there. We'll muddle through it. All right. So we added T. Does Rule 5 apply? Yeah. There's no I plus 1 here, right? So it doesn't apply. All right. So last one is C on the end. So it does apply. So we add the follow of S to C. What about, does rule 3 apply to, do we have epsilons going to the end for anything that comes after it? No, we don't have any epsilons. I actually will have to ask Adam on this one. I think rule 3 still applies, it just doesn't matter. Because we're worried about whether it goes to the end or not. There are no characters after it, so the for loop would probably just kick right out and never go into it because there's nothing in the array after it, or in the string, or whatever you're using. And I imagine that's what they'll probably say, but I need to double check.
So, a question. So why is the B still highlighted? Is the C supposed to be highlighted?
The C is supposed to be highlighted, yeah.
Okay, I just want to know. I didn't know if maybe we had to look through B and all these other C things.
No, we're on C.
Gotcha, just want to make sure.
Yeah. I told my wife, I think I told this to another class, we were at the store, and I was, oh, it's Halloween, I'll get Reese's, and I'll bring them to the class, and anybody that finds a bug or points it out on a slide would get a Reese's, and she's like, you would never make it to class with the Reese's. So she bombed that idea. I thought it was a really good idea for me.
So you got some anywhere. Okay?
Yeah, not yet. But I also had like a Krispy Kreme craving over the weekend. And so after working out Monday morning, I just happened to be right there by it. And so I brought a couple dozen donuts for the whole security team on Monday. And that so that it cost me so much I wouldn't do it very often. I didn't realize quite how expensive 2 dozen donuts were from Krispy Kreme. It's kind of crazy.
Gotta go Dunkin'.
Yeah, I'm not a big Dunkin' Donut fan though, so.
Kind of funny. I'm the exact opposite. I love Dunkin'. I love Dunkin'.
Uh,
I don't know. Maybe it's an East Coast thing,
could be just a taste thing.
but probably more than likely.
So there's no F0 in this one for the first to the right, so no application. R5, same thing. There's no F0 or I+1. Did I? So, yeah, I actually realized, I guess, at some point that I made a mistake and fixed it, but just didn't fix it up, get all the slides. Okay. Any questions on that?
So then, when we do the follows, that we only look at the S terminal for all the follows. I mean,
In this example.
Okay, what would we do? How would we know if we have to look at A, B, and C?
Are they on the right-hand side?
Oh, okay. So in that case, it's all non-terminals on the right-hand side we have to look at.
Yes.
So then after we're done with that and the S, we go to A and we do that same.
Yeah, I mean, technically for each pass, that's what you're doing. So when you look at the follow of A, we would look at the rule next to S, and we'd look at the A up there, and then if there was an A, say there was an A and B, then we'd evaluate it again for that position, because you're positional, with follows, you're positionally worried about what is actually coming after it. And so you need to go look at every instance of it where it's used to look, okay, what's coming to the right of it in this instance.
Okay, so in that case, we do it for every term. So we do A and S, then A and A, and etc. And we go on to B and we do the same thing.
Yeah, you look for every instance of it. In this case, they all happen to only be in S because I made a simple. When I made the rule for first sets, I didn't really think about it for making the follow more complicated by having it go through. But yeah, so that was the point of the slide a little earlier, was that when we're doing follow sets and the non-terminal appears in multiple rules on the right-hand side, you have to do the follow set. You have to process these rules 2 through 5 for each appearance.
I gotcha.
Any other questions? That's good. All right. Has anybody started on task 2 yet? Yeah. Thought so. Kind of debated on whether to talk about task 2 or not at all today. it's pretty much like task 1, except you just switching up the rules that you're applying to the follow set rules, and then outputting follow with the name of the non-terminal with all the terminals that fall into that follow set. Again, notice the spaces. Also, as Adam said a couple times in class, you know it's not working right if you have an epsilon in your follow set. That should never happen. And so that's a good double check. Then all the other elements, so all the elements that are listed there, what happens? All the elements that are listed here are supposed to be in dictionary order as determined by string compare. So string compare is going to use the ASCII values. So it's going to compare them on basically a character by character basis and look at the ASCII values. So which ASCII value is higher, capital A or lowercase a? Do what? Yeah, that's right. Lowercase a comes second. Uppercase A is, in hex, it's 41, which is 60. Is it? 65. 60 something, I remember. And then lowercase a is 61, I think. No point in memorizing these. I have no idea why they're in my brain. Do what? 97. In decimal. Yeah. In hex. It's close enough. Anyways, the point is that 41 for the uppercase is less than the bigger number for the lowercase. And so you end up with anything that starts with an uppercase letter will be printed first, and you worry about that. But string compare, you can just use that, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it. It'll sort them for you. Any other questions on that? Comments? Have many of you guys started on first sets? Like trying to code the first sets at least a little bit? I would think as a general, rule of thumb, you probably want to be done with task 0 by the weekend, worst case. Give you enough time. When's it due?
2 weeks.
2 weeks from tomorrow? So you have this coming weekend and the following weekend, and then you're done? Yeah, I would, if you're not well into task 1 by the end of the weekend, I think you're probably going to have, depending on, we don't actually know exactly how long it takes, like an average programmer to do it, and when you take all of us in general, well, we're never quite as good as we think we actually are, but, which is kind of why I made money at poker. But programming-wise, we're all, average, basically, for the most part. To think that you're not above average is kind of a irrational thought, but we still do it. Anyways, yeah, I would definitely be getting some code down to at least get through it. The test cases that they put out are not the only test cases. They have hidden test cases on the server, and that's definitely where I got hung up. So it was working great for the test cases that they had, but not for, the test cases that I had in the that they gave us, but it wasn't working for the test cases that they had on the server or my additional ones that I'd actually created. So it just takes time, and if you get stuck, you need the time to come ask questions or get help too. So I would do that pretty aggressively, but I know we all have other classes and other things that kind of interfere. So here's just the example from the one that we did in kind of the same, in the format that would be expected to come out of the program. Assuming I have it in the right alphabetical order. The follow sets are ordered by, so the appearance of the follow sets are ordered by that first line in the program, but the order of the terminals is by the dictionary order we were talking about earlier. Questions? Would you guys rather, we got two choices. We can try to go through a recursive descent parser, basically go through a full example. Maybe not of the recursive descent parser, but at least do the first and the follow set for the grammar. Maybe talk about some of the intersections, make sure that it's parsable by a recursive descent parser. The other option is we could at least talk through or start thinking about some different tests that you guys could create for your program. I haven't seen the ones that are on the server. I have no idea what's there, but we could at least talk about what are some of the things that you might want to add for your own test cases as you're kind of moving forward. Any preference? Yeah?
I personally like to go through the recursive descent parser because it's on the homework and it might be on the final, possibly.
Well, it could be on the final. It might be on the midterm too, though.
Oh, did I say final?
Yeah.
I'm
So-
at midterm. My bad.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah. It might be on the final too, though. Never know. Can't remember. Can't remember if his are cumulative or not. I think the final might be. Anyways, yeah. Anybody else? I mean, is that?
Yes, one quick question. What were the cases in which you log code was free?
No idea.
Any part of the code where you're getting called or something after you corrected it?
You don't know because you submit it to the server and it just says you failed.
No, but you made changes, right? You made changes to get it right.
Yeah. I don't remember now. That's the problem, right? And I don't have my code. So for some reason in my infinite wisdom, I decided I didn't need that CentOS version anymore, and I just blew it away and didn't think about getting my code off of it. So yeah, I may still have it somewhere. I just can't find it. Got so many different hard drives and stuff. Do what? Yeah. Just lazy. I had it backed up too, I thought, but like I do a lot of stuff now just on Dropbox so that's my lazy alternative that just automatically does it. But yeah, I know I would definitely start with not even worrying about epsilon stuff at first on the first sets. Like I would come up with complex examples that don't have epsilon in them and get those definitely solid. I think most of the people, and I know I had issues with it, it has to do with implementing, Rule 3, because you're going through that count of stuff, and you have to make sure that you go through it for each, you keep going through it as long as you need to go through it. And the boundary cases in that, when you end up with just epsilon maybe going all the way to the end for the other rule, or those, but Rule 3, just with the movement through, there's probably some interesting test cases, but first test case I would write would probably just be 2 lines. Just to get that working. Super simple. So that get Rule 3 and Rule 1 and Rule 3 working for, non-terminal S goes to little a. And if that's working, you got a huge start on it. And then you worry about getting like Rule 3 where it's working with multiple characters, and then I would build from there, adding non-terminals after that. So I do like S goes to A, and then I do like S goes to A, B, C, D, and then all lowercase, all terminals, and then I'd add another non-terminal, an A, and add that in and make sure that the code can handle that. That'd probably be my progression to build into it. For me, it's real important I love to test often. I don't love to test, but I love to
get a little bit of code working because it's so much easier to debug this much code versus 50,000 lines of code. So is that kind of good on the tests, and we can talk about the other stuff? I mean, you can come by my office hours, or send me an email. I can't imagine that he'd have problems with you guys talking over the list too about different test cases maybe. I can't imagine that would be you guys kind of collaborating to come up with different test cases, because everybody thinks about it a little bit differently. And some people are actually good at testing code. I'm not necessarily one of them. I loved it when we had QA testers. It was awesome. Okay, so have this. So this example actually came from our midterm review when I took the class. Except ours, which was before that, I think an exam was on an exam, and ours did not have, for whatever reason, you couldn't actually parse it. It actually had the set. So I tried to fix the set and then redo everything. And we'll a cheat sheet. Maybe. I worked through it on paper, so. But if I didn't put it in here, it's not going to be done any good. Let's knock out the first sets first. Is that on the screen enough? You could move to the right a little bit. Good. Good. All right. Where's the first? All the way down there. All right, so this may not be the best program to use. Still kind of figuring it out, how to use it in this way. No, I want you to maximize. All right, I did something, didn't I?
You want to snap it to over there?
There we go. I didn't even know you could do that. That's actually kind of cool. All right, so let's start with me clicking on that. All right, so we want the first of S. Actually, here's what we'll do. First of A, first of B, first of C, first of D. All right, let's start with D. It would be initialized to the empty set, but then what would it be on the next pass? First of D.
Little d. No epsilon. Doesn't have to worry about it, so that's pretty straightforward. All right. What about first to C? C and epsilon. All right. What about first of B? First of A? And first of S? D? D as well? Yep. Cool. All right, now let's look at follow sets. Someday they'll make it easier to do this, I think. What do I want to start with? I guess let's just start with S. So what is the first rule? Anything else? It doesn't appear anywhere else, so nothing else is going to apply to it. Well, that was easy. We got A now. Where does A apply? Where does A appear? Yeah, in the first rule. So let's look at this one. Let's look at this one first. It's followed by, which is C, and then well, let's stay on the S. So that was, we looked at. Let's look at rule 2. We'll go through kind of systematically. So you look at rule 2 for this A that's up here, and it's not on the end. It's not the rightmost character. Do the first of C and D, do they both have epsilon in them? No. We're capped on the end with D. Look at rule 4. Is there something immediately to the right of A? Yes, that's where we get the C from. And then is there an epsilon in C, in the first of C? And there is. So we look at the first of D, which is the D. Good? Now we got follow of B. So B appears.
As in the following, but in the second rule, I
So yeah, the second rule. We apply the second rule, and because it's on the end for rule A, and so we do the follow of A, which is convenient. We already did A. And then the second rule doesn't apply. Nothing else, I mean, it's on the end, so really none of the other ones apply, right? And so then we look at this next rule with B. B's on the end here too. So we look at the follow, we add the follow of B to B, which is still the same, right? And then we look at, there's nothing after it, so none of the other rules apply. So it looks like it's just CD. Did I miss something? Oh, yeah, we missed that. I missed that. My bad. Did I even look at that one? I think I just went through the first part. Yeah. So in A, we look at, in this A, it's not on the end. It's rule 3 doesn't apply, but rule 4, we look at the first of the character right next to it, which is F, in the first of F. So we add first of F minus epsilon, which is F. And then C, CD, so B is we did this guy, and then we're looking here with the follow, so I don't see any other changes. First, or follow of C. So C is only appearing up here. So it's not on the end. There's no epsilon in D. So the rule 3 doesn't apply. Do what? What? Yeah, just D. Yeah, so this one for D. And then this one does not apply. We don't have an I plus 1. And then that's the only. And then the follow of D. We look at where it occurs. It's up here, the follow of D. So we're going to, by rule 2, add the follow of S to the follow of D, which is going to be the end of file. If I can find my cursor again.
And then follow B.
And then follow.
Which are actually all of follow and follow B.
Wouldn't it just be D? Just add D.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just D, right? The follow of S is just this up here.
Yes.
And then that's the only application, so that's the only one? Okay.
Wait, so why is it added on the B?
Oh, D. Wait.
Shouldn't be D because it's at the very last on S. Okay, no, because that's where we added the S into there, and there's nothing after it.
Right. So
Yeah,
so we add the follow of S. We add the follow of S, which is right here.
Uh-huh.
And then, but there's nothing. That's it. That's the only thing that can come after it. That's the first of D. It could have D in the beginning, but it can't be D. This non-terminal D can't be followed by D.
Okay, yeah, I was jumping to 4 and 5 and I wasn't looking at it properly.
All right. Now that I took up all that time, we can. We'll look at the parser for A. Unless that happens. So when we start, we're looking at A, and we have so we start with A, and we look at the rule for A over to the right-hand side. You guys can see my mouse at least. So we're going to look at A is broken up into 2 rules. This is the first rule, so this will be the first if statement. And the B parsing of the B portion of it will be the second. So we want to look at the first sets first. So what's the first thing we're doing here? Get token. And then what we're essentially wanting to do is look at the first of A, which is really just F, right? I'm sorry, A. All right, so we do the T-type, if T-type equals A. So if it equals A, we know at this point that we're on in this part over here. And then so what happens next? What's the next thing we do based on knowing that we're in this rule? Yeah, exactly. Do we need to do an unget token on it before we do the parse A? No, because we consumed this A in the rule. So this A is right here. It's part of our rule. We consumed it. It's not that we're going into here and looking for it. So we would do a parse A, and then once we come back from parse A, what should be the next character? So if they're, so when you come back from parsing another A, the next character that we're expecting is the F that's on the end there. So what do we do next? So what do we do here then? Yeah, exactly. And then we'll check if it's equal to F. And if it is, then we'll, yeah, Adam and I definitely differ on this point, but I like positive logic. I'm not a big fan of the negative logic, so I think it just gets really gross when you're trying to debug something 3 months later. So I would do, the way I would handle it is do A goes to A, F, print that, and then do an else. I really should have thought about doing this in Sublime or something that would at least handle my tabs better. What did I say? Syntax error.
Should you put the else for the if on the last one in that case? Because if it's not A, then it's a syntax error. Or could you do both in that case?
Be both. Because if you don't initially get the A,
Yeah.
then
It could be
it
B.
could be a B.
Okay.
So we look at the first. Now we're going to look at the second part of the rule. So the second part of the rule has the B. That's the B right here. So we want to look at the first of B to see if.
Oh, okay, I see.
So we'll look at else if this is not proper C code, but it's going to work today. What are we doing? CD. Sorry. If T type in CD, right? Because we're going to. Is that all right? Come on. CD, because we're looking at B. And so we're wanting to know if T-type is a token of C or D. And if it is, what do we do? Parse E.
The first B.
It is the first of B. Oh, you're right. That's me not looking at the right. Thank you. It's the first of B. Is looking at the other one, which is actually, so I didn't do what I set out to do with this example. We're going to end up with, it's not going to be parsable. Can anybody actually see why at this point? We're a couple minutes. We're getting really close. Anybody see why it's not going to work? Why we're not going to be able to finish at some point, not necessarily here, but so we'll finish if type in B, if I just look at my notes over there, and then we want to do an unget token. Why? Why do we do an unget token? Yeah, because we want to parse big B. And so we got to set it back up to the point where the beginning of big B would be, which is, so we unget, there was a B that we got, so we just shove it back in the input so that it'll be all ready there for parse B to do its job on it. And then we would print A goes to B. Now, here, we're not, nope, that's right. That's why this is broken. trying to fix it. It won't fix. There's no way to fix it. So what? So the first of A has epsilon. Actually, we're okay. Sorry. We looked at the first of AF, which is A. And then we look at the first, if we were doing the intersection, we look at the first of just B. Because they're separate rules, and they're going to be selected. We need to make a decision for A, which one's going to happen. And so we know that if there's an epsilon that actually comes from the B side, there's nothing in we have the terminal A from the other direction. So if the type's B, we parse B, we know that it has to be that part of the rule B, and B takes care of that. But now if it's epsilon, how do we know if it's valid? What do we look for if we encounter the epsilon? Follow of A, exactly. So as long as it's in CDF, what do we print then? What rule? What's being consumed? Something's not right.
I go to B.
Yeah, so if it's in CDF, then we know that A went to epsilon, right?
Yeah.
But before we fall through, we've consumed a token then from the follow set from one of these CDRFs that we're not actually responsible for because they come after. So we need to do an unget token here. We need to shove it back on there so that for the subsequent processing, the things that follow can have that token available and they can figure out what they need to do with it. So if none of that happens, then we have a syntax error. Make sense? So that's the rough parse of A. Any questions? No? All right. Ran a little long. Sorry, guys.